The radio call came through at 0347 hours. Viper 1 is down. Confirmed Kia. Mission abort. Repeat, abort and extract. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen's body lay somewhere in the burning compound, or so every SEAL on that mountainside believed. What they did not know, what nobody could have known, was that Sarah Chen had survived worse than this. And the woman they were leaving for dead had just woken up to discover her silver-haired commander bleeding out 30 meters away in enemy hands. The explosion had thrown Chen through a mud brick wall. She could taste copper and dust, feel the wet heat spreading across her left side, where shrapnel had found the gap in her body armor. Her right leg screamed when she tried to move it. Probably fractured. Definitely not good. But pain was just information, and right now the information told her she was alive when she should not be. The building groaned above her. Structural collapse imminent. She had maybe 15 minutes before the ceiling came down. Chen forced herself to assess the tactical situation with the same cold precision that had made her the highest-scoring sniper in SEAL history. The compound was compromised. Her team believed her dead and had pulled back to the extraction point 3 kilometers southwest. Commander James Mitchell, call sign Ghost, was missing. And somewhere in this burning maze, Taliban fighters were regrouping. She heard voices then. Pashto, close. Chen went still, controlling her breathing despite the fire in her ribs. 3 men passed within 5 meters of her position, their boots crunching on broken glass and spent brass. They were searching, hunting, looking for survivors to finish or capture. When their voices faded, Chen reached for her rifle. Gone, blown clear in the blast. Her sidearm remained holstered at her hip. 17 rounds. She checked her tactical vest. 2 magazines left. 43 bullets total between her and whatever came next. The combat knife strapped to her calf had survived. Her radio was destroyed, the headset hanging in pieces around her neck. Before we go further, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe you have witnessed similar acts of courage where you are from, or know someone who served in places like this. Chen pulled herself upright, biting down against the wave of nausea that followed. The room spun. Concussion. Added to the list. Through the gaping hole in the wall, she could see into the compound's central courtyard. And there, zip-tied to a metal chair in the flickering light of burning wreckage, sat Commander Mitchell. Blood matted his silver hair black on one side. His left arm hung at an unnatural angle, but his eyes were open and tracking movement. Still alive, still fighting. Chen watched as a man stepped into view, tall and lean, wearing Afghan National Army fatigues that had seen better days. He circled Mitchell like a wolf assessing wounded prey. The man spoke in perfect, unaccented English. So this is the legendary Ghost, the commander who has killed so many of my brothers. Tell me, do you know who I am? Mitchell's response came through split lips. I know you are a traitor who sold out his own country. I know the Americans you helped kill trusted you. I know you are called the surgeon, and I know that name is not about your medical skills. The surgeon smiled without warmth. Very good. Your intelligence is accurate. And do you know what else your intelligence tells you about me, Commander? That you have killed 47 coalition soldiers in the past 2 years. That you were trained by us, paid by us, and trusted by us until the day we accidentally killed your family in a drone strike. Chen recognized the voice now from mission briefings. Khalid Nazari, former Afghan National Army captain, current Taliban commander, responsible for the ambush that had just destroyed their mission and scattered her team. The surgeon leaned close to Mitchell. Your intelligence is incomplete, Commander. The count is 51 now, and soon it will be 57 once I finish with you and the 6 men you led into my trap. He paused, then smiled again. Correction, 5 men, because the woman, the one they called Viper, she is already dead, buried under the east wall. Fitting end for a woman who thought she could be a warrior. Chen felt something cold settle into her chest. Not anger. Anger was hot and loud and stupid. This was calculation. Assessment. The moment when a target stopped being a person and became a problem to solve. She had 300 seconds before the building came down. The surgeon had maybe 8 fighters in the compound. Mitchell was 30 meters away, through open ground with no cover. Tactically impossible. Mathematically suicidal. But Chen had not become the first woman to complete SEAL training by accepting impossible. She had not earned her reputation as the deadliest sniper in naval special warfare by respecting mathematical probability. And she had not survived 3 tours in Afghanistan by leaving her people behind. The building shuddered. Dust rained from the ceiling. 270 seconds now. Chen checked her sidearm one more time, chambered around, and began to move. The pain in her leg was irrelevant. The blood soaking through her uniform was irrelevant. The fact that her own team had declared her dead and abandoned the rescue was irrelevant. Commander Mitchell had come back for her once, 2 years ago in Helmand Province, when her position had been overrun and her spotter killed. He had led a foreman element through 200 enemy fighters to pull her out. She had asked him later why he risked 6 lives for one. He had looked at her with those pale gray eyes and said, "Because you were still fighting. Because you did not quit. Because you earned it." Now, it was her turn to pay that debt. Chen reached the doorway and assessed her route. 15 meters of open courtyard. Then 5 meters of covered approach. Then the chair. The surgeon had posted 2 guards at the north entrance. 1 more patrolling the perimeter. Call it 3 immediate threats, plus the surgeon himself. 4 targets. 17 rounds. Acceptable odds if she made every shot count. Through the doorway, she could see the surgeon pulling a knife from his belt. The blade caught the firelight. He spoke again, his voice carrying easily in the mountain night. "Your people have abandoned you, Commander. Your woman warrior is dead. Your mission has failed, but I am not without mercy. Tell me where your remaining teams are positioned, and I will make this quick." Mitchell's laugh came wet and broken. "You think I would tell you anything? You think I fear dying? I've been dying since the day I put on this uniform. We all have. The only question is whether it means something." The surgeon pressed the knife against Mitchell's throat. "Then let me give your death meaning. Let me send a message to your superiors that their precious female SEAL could not even survive her first real combat. That women have no place in war." Chen stepped into the doorway. Her voice cut through the courtyard, steady and cold. "The message you should send is that I'm still alive, and you just made a fatal mistake." The surgeon froze. His guards turned, and in that half-second of shock, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen opened fire. The first guard dropped before he could bring his rifle up. Headshot. Clean. The second guard managed to turn fully before Chen's bullet caught him center mass. He fell backward into the fire. The third guard, the one patrolling the perimeter, had better instincts. He dove for cover behind a concrete barrier and started shouting in Pashto. "Reinforcements coming." Chen had maybe 30 seconds before the compound flooded with fighters. The surgeon moved with the fluid speed of a trained soldier. He grabbed Mitchell's chair and dragged it backward toward the north entrance, using the commander as a human shield. His knife remained at Mitchell's throat. The blade drew a thin line of blood. "Very impressive," the surgeon called out. "The dead woman rises. But you are wounded, alone, and surrounded. You have perhaps 15 bullets remaining. I have 30 men in this compound. The mathematics are not in your favor." Chen moved laterally, keeping to the shadows, circling for a better angle. Her legs screamed with each step, but she forced the pain down into a locked box in her mind. A trick she had learned during Hell Week at BUD/S training. Pain was just electricity, signals and nerves. You could acknowledge it without obeying it. "I only need 1 bullet," Chen said, "and I have never missed at this range." The surgeon laughed. "Ah yes, the legendary Viper. The woman who thinks she earned her place among warriors. Tell me, do you know why Commander Mitchell requested you specifically for this mission?" Chen did not answer. She was counting. Timing. The guard behind the barrier would pop up to shoot in 3, 2, 1. She fired twice. The first round sparked off the concrete. The second caught him as he rose. He collapsed without a sound. 14 bullets left. Chen's vision swam. Blood loss. She could feel it now, the steady leak of life from the shrapnel wound in her side. 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Then her body would start shutting down whether she liked it or not. The surgeon continued, dragging Mitchell backward. Your commander has not been honest with you, Lieutenant Commander Chen. Shall I tell you the truth? Shall I tell you why he brought you to this valley? Mitchell's voice cut through, strained but fierce. Do not listen to him, Chun. Psychological warfare. Lies to break your focus. But Chun had already seen something that made her chest tighten. The way the surgeon moved. The specific route he was taking. The north entrance led to the old Soviet bunker complex, a maze of underground tunnels that ran for hundreds of meters. If he got Mitchell into those tunnels, the rescue became impossible. Chun would never find them in time, never extract him before her body failed or reinforcements arrived in force. She needed a new approach, something the surgeon would not expect, something impossible. Chun holstered her sidearm and pulled the combat knife from her calf sheath. Then she ran directly at them, not tactically, not with cover, just a straight sprint across open ground, her fractured leg threatening to buckle with every step, her vision tunneling from blood loss, her lungs burning from the smoke and the broken ribs. The surgeon's eyes widened. He brought his own knife up, releasing Mitchell's throat to face this new insanity. What are you doing? This is suicide. Chun closed the distance in 4 seconds that felt like 4 years. The surgeon was fast, well-trained, a killer who had survived 3 years of brutal warfare. But Sarah Chun had spent 2 years as the primary hand-to-hand combat instructor at SEAL Team 3. She had fought men twice her size in sparring matches that left both participants bloody. She had learned that being smaller meant being faster, meaner, and willing to accept more damage to deliver the killing blow. She ducked under his first slash, felt the blade whisper past her ear, came up inside his guard, drove her knife toward his throat. He blocked with his forearm, twisted, tried to throw her. She rolled with it, used his momentum against him, came up with her blade, finding the gap between his body armor plates. Not a killing blow, not even close, but enough to make him stagger back. The building groaned. The ceiling sagged. 90 seconds until collapse. Chun did not press her advantage. Instead, she turned to Mitchell, pulled her own knife across his zip ties. The commander fell forward. She caught him, bore his weight despite her leg, despite the wound, despite everything screaming at her to stop. Can you walk? She asked. Mitchell's face was gray with pain. Not quickly, not far. His eyes met hers. Chun, you need to leave me. Get yourself out. That is an order. She pulled his good arm over her shoulders, took his weight. With respect, sir, I do not take orders from men who are actively bleeding out. We leave together or not at all. The surgeon had recovered. Blood seeped through his uniform, but he was still standing, still dangerous. He raised his rifle. Behind him, Chun could see more fighters pouring into the courtyard. 6, 8, a dozen, all armed, all moving toward them. This is where it ends, the surgeon said. The woman warrior dies, trying to save the man who got her killed. Chun looked at him across the 15 meters of burning courtyard, looked at the rifles pointed at her, looked at the impossible situation. Then she smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had survived impossible situations before. The smile of someone who had graduated BUD/S training when 70% of her class had quit. The smile of someone who had made shots that instructors said were beyond human capability. You want to know why the commander requested me specifically? Chun asked. She reached in her vest and pulled out a small device. A dead man switch connected to the 4 explosive charges she had placed around the compound's support structures during their initial infiltration. Standard SEAL protocol. Always have a contingency. Always have a way out. Because he knows I always have a plan. She released the switch. The charges detonated simultaneously. The east wall collapsed inward. The north entrance caved. The main support beam cracked with a sound like thunder. And in the chaos, in the dust, in the screaming and the panic, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun dragged Commander Mitchell toward the only exit that remained, a gap in the south wall that led into the mountain darkness beyond. The surgeon's voice followed them. I will find you, woman warrior. These mountains are mine. You cannot hide from me. She did not look back. She pulled Mitchell through the gap, into the night, into the rocks and shadows of the Hindu Kush. Behind them, the compound collapsed completely. Ahead of them lay 15 kilometers of enemy territory, hostile mountains, and a wound that was bleeding her life away one heartbeat at a time. But she had Mitchell. She had 14 bullets. She had a knife. And she had something the surgeon would never understand. She had a promise she made 2 years ago, the day Mitchell pulled her out of Helmand Province. A promise that she would never, ever leave a teammate behind. The cold mountain air hit her face. Her leg finally gave out. She fell to one knee, still holding Mitchell upright. He looked at her in the moonlight. This woman who should be dead, who had just assaulted a fortified position alone, who had chosen certain death over abandoning him. Why? He asked. Why come back for me? Chen forced herself to stand, started moving again. Because you taught me that we do not leave our people behind. Because you came back for me once. Because that is what SEALs do. She did not tell him the other reason. The one that burned in her chest like a second wound. The one that had driven her through 3 years of proving herself again and again in a world that believed women did not belong in combat. Mitchell had lost someone 2 years ago. A teammate. His protege. Someone Chun had trained with. Someone who had died because Chun made a tactical error during a firefight in Helmand Province. She had carried that guilt every day since. And now, bleeding and broken in these mountains, she had a chance to pay that debt. To prove that the faith Mitchell had shown in her was not misplaced. To prove that she belonged here, in this fight, in this uniform, among these warriors. The extraction point was 15 kilometers away. Her team believed her dead. Her radio was destroyed. She had no support, no backup, and a Taliban commander with 30 fighters hunting her through terrain he knew better than his own heartbeat. But Sarah Chun had survived worse than this. And tonight, she would prove it one more time. They made it 300 meters before Chun had to stop. Her vision was graying at the edges, her hands shaking from blood loss. She lowered Mitchell against a boulder and checked his injuries. Dislocated shoulder, broken ribs, deep laceration across his scalp. But alive, still breathing, still fighting. She pulled a field dressing from her vest and pressed it against the wound in her own side. The pressure made stars explode behind her eyes, but she held it there, counting to 30 while her body screamed. When she pulled her hand away, the bleeding had slowed. Not stopped, just slowed. She had maybe 2 hours before shock set in. Maybe 3 if she was lucky. Mitchell watched her with those pale gray eyes. You're going to bleed out before we reach the extraction point. Chun wrapped the dressing tight, secured it with medical tape. Probably, but not in the next 10 kilometers. That gives us options. What options? We have no radio, no support. The team thinks you are dead and has already pulled back. We are alone in Taliban-controlled territory with the most dangerous insurgent commander in Afghanistan actively hunting us. His voice was steady, but Chun could hear the pain beneath it. The rational thing to do is find a defensive position and wait for dawn. Signal for pickup when the sun rises. Chun checked her remaining ammunition. 13 rounds in the pistol. 2 spare magazines. She looked at Mitchell. The rational thing got us into this situation. Rationality said women could not be SEALs. Rationality said this mission was achievable with our intel. Rationality said you would be dead by now. She started moving again, helping him to his feet. I stopped listening to Rational about 3 years ago. They moved through the darkness, following a goat trail that wound along the ridgeline. The mountains rose around them like frozen waves, sharp and hostile and beautiful in the moonlight. Chun had studied these valleys during mission prep, had memorized every approach, every escape route, every piece of terrain that could provide advantage or concealment. That knowledge was keeping them alive now. Behind them, she could hear voices, distant but closing. The surgeon's hunters spreading out in a search pattern. Professional, methodical. They would find the trail eventually. Find a blood Chun was leaving despite her best efforts. Find the distinctive boot prints of American combat boots in the loose scree. Mitchell stumbled. Chun caught him, felt his weight sag against her. The commander was fading. Shock and blood loss catching up. She needed to get fluids into him, stabilize his core temperature, treat his injuries properly. But all of that required time they did not have. Talk to me, she said. Keep your mind active. Tell me why you requested me for this mission. Mitchell's breathing was labored. Does it matter now? It matters to me. Chun adjusted her grip on him, took more of his weight despite her leg threatening to buckle. The surgeon said you were not honest with me. Said there was a reason you brought me to this valley specifically. The commander was quiet for a long moment. Only their footsteps and harsh breathing broke the mountain silence. Then he spoke, his voice rough. Your teammate, Lieutenant Marcus Chun, the one who died in Helmand 2 years ago. Sarah felt something cold slide down her spine. Marcus had been her friend, her training partner, the best combat medic she had ever worked with. He had died covering her position during a firefight, taking 3 rounds that were meant for her. She had carried his body 6 kilometers to the extraction point, had stood at attention while they loaded him onto the helicopter, had not cried until 3 days later when she was alone. What about him? She asked. Mitchell coughed, a wet sound that Chin did not like. He was my son. The world tilted. Chin nearly dropped him. Marcus never mentioned having a father in the teams. Never mentioned anything about family except that they were estranged, distant, that he had joined the Navy to prove something to someone who did not believe in him. He did not know. Mitchell continued. I watched him from a distance his entire career, pulled strings to keep him safe where I could. But I never told him. Never had the courage. And then Hellman happened, and you brought him home. Chin's throat tightened. Sir, I am the reason he died. I made a tactical error. Put my team in a crossfire. Marcus took rounds covering my mistake. Mitchell stopped walking, turned to look at her despite the pain it cost him. Is that what you think? That it was your fault? It was my call. My responsibility. The commander's expression hardened. I read the after-action report. I watched the drone footage. Marcus made a choice. A warrior's choice. He saw a teammate in danger, and he acted. That is not your burden to carry. That is his honor. Voices erupted behind them. Closer now. Maybe 200 meters. Chun could see flashlights sweeping the mountainside, searching. The hunters had found their trail. We need to move, she said. But Mitchell's words were rattling around in her head, rearranging something fundamental. For 2 years, she had blamed herself. For 2 years, she had pushed harder, trained longer, accepted impossible missions to prove she deserved to wear the trident. To prove Marcus's sacrifice was not wasted on someone unworthy. They continued along the ridge. The trail narrowed, became treacherous. On their left, the mountain rose sharp and unforgiving. On their right, a drop of 200 meters into darkness. One wrong step would kill them both. Chin's radio earpiece crackled. Dead, but picking up stray transmissions. She heard a voice she recognized. Lieutenant Payet Kisla, second in command of her unit. The one who had called the abort order. Phoenix Actual, this is Viper 2. Confirming all personnel extracted. Mission failure. 1 Kia, 1 MIA presumed captured. Request permission to return to base. Another voice responded. Phoenix Actual copies. RTB authorized. Break. What about the MIA? Kessler's voice was flat. Commander Mitchell is behind enemy lines with the surgeon. Even if we went back, we would be walking into an ambush. The mission is over. We cut our losses. Chun felt rage flash through her. Cut our losses. As if Mitchell was just acceptable collateral damage. As if 2 years of planning and 3 months of infiltration and 6 lives risked meant nothing compared to the risk of another attempt. Mitchell heard it too. His jaw tightened. Kessler never wanted you on this team. Fought your assignment all the way to the Admiral. He sees you as a liability. A political statement that endangers real operators. Chin's hands curled into fists. Then we prove him wrong. We get to that extraction point. We get extracted. And we make him look us in the eyes when we do. A rifle shot cracked through the night. The bullet sparked off stone 5 meters behind them. The hunters had visual contact. Chin pulled Mitchell into a cluster of boulders, found cover. She drew her sidearm, counted targets. For flashlights. For shooters. More following behind. 13 bullets. For immediate threats. 9 were coming. The mathematics were still bad. Mitchell slumped against the rocks. His breathing was shallow, rapid, going into shock. She needed to end this quickly, get him moving again before his body shut down. She checked the terrain. The trail ahead curved around a bend, disappeared into a narrow defile between rock faces. Choke point. Defensible. If she could get Mitchell there, she could hold it. Maybe. Can you shoot? She asked. Mitchell's hand trembled as he reached for his sidearm. His holster was empty, lost in the compound. He looked at her. No. Chun pulled one of her spare magazines, pressed it into his hand. Then throw rocks. Make noise. Make them think there are two of us fighting. I need 30 seconds. She did not wait for his response. She moved laterally along the boulder field, circling, finding the high ground. The hunters were advancing in a line, professional and careful. But they were looking ahead, anticipating an ambush from the trail, not expecting her to flank. Chun found her position, prone behind a flat rock, 70 meters to the nearest target. Easy shot for someone with her training. Impossible shot for someone bleeding out with a concussion and a fractured leg. She steadied her breathing, controlled her heartbeat, let the pain fade into background noise. The first hunter went down with a headshot. The others scattered, seeking cover, firing wild. Chun shifted aim. Second target. Squeeze trigger. Hit. Third target. Fired. The bullet went wide, sparked off a rock. Her hands were shaking now. Blood loss. Exhaustion. The body's limits catching up. Mitchell threw a rock. It clattered down the slope. The hunters turned toward the sound, confused. Chun used the moment. Fourth target. Center mass. Down. 9 bullets left. 3 hunters down. 1 wounded and retreating. The rest pulling back, calling for reinforcements. She had bought them time. Maybe 5 minutes. Maybe 10. Chun crawled back to Mitchell. His eyes were closed. She shook him. Stay with me, Commander. We are not done yet. His eyes opened. Sarah. He had never used her first name before. Always Chun. Always Lieutenant Commander. Always professional distance. I need you to know something. If we do not make it out, if this is how it ends, we are making it out, she said. But he kept talking. You are the finest warrior I have ever served with. Man or woman. You earned your place. Marcus will be proud. I am proud. Chun felt something crack inside her chest. Something that had been frozen and hard for 2 years. She pulled Mitchell upright, shouldered his weight, started moving toward the defile. Then let us get out of these mountains, she said. So you can tell me that again when we're not bleeding to death. The defile was exactly what you needed. 20 meters long, barely wide enough for 2 men to walk abreast, with rock walls rising 15 meters on both sides. A natural choke point. She dragged Mitchell through and positioned him at the far end, then returned to the entrance. If the hunters wanted them, they would have to come through this narrow passage. And Chun would be waiting. She checked her ammunition one more time. 9 rounds. Then she checked the sky. Weather moving in from the north. Heavy clouds obscuring the moon. In 15 minutes, maybe 20, visibility would drop to almost nothing. The hunters would have to rely on night vision and thermal scopes, both of which had weaknesses Chun knew how to exploit. Mitchell's voice drifted from behind her. You cannot hold this position forever. Eventually they will flank us or wait us out. I do not need forever, Chun replied. I just need 2 hours. Get us to dawn. Once the sun rises, we signal for extraction. With what radio? With what team? Kessler has already written us off. Chun smiled in the darkness. Kessler does not speak for the entire Navy. Admiral Morrison knows I am too stubborn to die. When I do not check in at 0800 hours, he will send someone. Someone who will not abandon the search. How can you be sure? Because the Admiral was Marcus's godfather. Because he was at the funeral. Because he looked me in the eyes and told me that Marcus believed in me. That I needed to believe in myself. Chun paused. And because I put a tracker in my boot. Standard protocol for operations in hostile territory. As long as my heart is beating, that tracker is transmitting. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. It was a rough sound, painful but genuine. Of course you did. Always thinking 3 moves ahead. You taught me that, Chun said. But the relief was short-lived. Voices echoed down the mountainside. The hunters were regrouping. She could hear the surgeon's voice among them, sharp and commanding. He was directing the search pattern, coordinating his forces. Professional, methodical, dangerous. Then the first hunter appeared at the mouth of the defile, silhouetted against the dim starlight. Chen fired once. The man dropped. 8 bullets left. The second hunter was smarter. He came low and fast, using the darkness, firing suppressing rounds. Chen felt a bullet crack past her head, chip stone inches from her face. She returned fire twice. 1 miss. 1 hit. The hunter fell. 6 bullets left. And now the surgeon knew exactly where she was. His voice called out from beyond the defile. Impressive shooting, Lieutenant Commander Chen. But you are trapped. My men are moving to flank your position. In 10 minutes, you will be surrounded. Surrender now, and I will let your commander live. You have my word. Chen did not respond. She was listening to the mountain, to the wind patterns, to the subtle sounds of men moving through rocks. The surgeon was not lying. She could hear movement on both sides of the defile, hunters climbing the rock faces to get above her position. Once they had the high ground, she was finished. She crawled back to Mitchell. His color was worse, gray and waxy in the dim light. Shock was setting in despite her efforts. He needed medical attention. Needed it an hour ago. But Chen was out of options and almost out of time. How many are there? Mitchell asked. Too many. Chen checked her gear. 1 fragmentation grenade remaining. She had been saving it for emergencies. This qualified. I'm going to create a diversion. When I do, we move deeper into the defile. There's a cave system about 50 meters east. Saw it on the satellite imagery during mission prep. Mitchell tried to sit up, failed. Sarah, you need to leave me. Take the chance while you have it. Get yourself out. Chen pulled him upright, ignoring his protests. We have been through this, Commander. I do not leave people behind. Not Marcus. Not you. Not anyone who wears the trident. She positioned the grenade at the defile entrance, rigged it with a tripwire using paracord from her vest. Then she half-carried, half-dragged Mitchell deeper into the narrow passage. Every step was agony. Her leg was barely supporting her weight. The wound in her side had reopened, fresh blood soaking through the dressing. But she kept moving because stopping meant dying, and dying meant failure, and failure meant proving Kessler right. They found the cave entrance exactly where the satellite imagery had shown it. A narrow opening hidden behind a rockfall, barely visible unless you knew to look for it. Chen pulled Mitchell inside, just as the grenade detonated behind them. The explosion was deafening in the confined space, echoing off stone walls. She heard screams, shouts of confusion. The hunters would be disoriented, cautious, uncertain how many explosives Chen had remaining. The cave was deeper than she expected. It tunneled back into the mountain, twisting and turning, the ceiling dropping lower until they were crawling. Mitchell's breathing was labored. Each movement cost him, but he did not complain, did not ask her to stop, just kept crawling forward into the darkness. After 50 meters, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Chen pulled out a chem light, cracked it, let the green glow illuminate their surroundings. Ancient Soviet equipment littered the floor. Ammunition crates, radio gear, remnants from the war 30 years ago. And in the back corner, another tunnel leading deeper into the mountain. We can rest here, Chen said. She lowered Mitchell against the wall, checked his pupils. Dilated. Not good. She needed to warm him up, get fluids into him, stabilize his blood pressure. She pulled out her emergency medical kit. 1 4-bag remaining. She hung it from a piece of rebar jutting from the ceiling, inserted the needle into Mitchell's arm with practiced precision. The commander watched her work. You have done this before. Too many times. Chen secured the 4-line. Marcus taught me. Said every operator should know how to keep their teammates alive until the real medics arrive. Her voice caught. He was good at that. Keeping people alive. Mitchell's hand found hers. He saved 7 men during his career. 7 lives that would have been lost without him. And then he saved you. That is 8. That is a legacy worth being proud of. Chen felt tears threaten but pushed them back. Tears were for later, for when they were safe, for when she could afford to feel something besides the cold calculation required to survive. She checked her watch. 0445 hours. 3 hours until sunrise. 3 hours until she could signal for extraction. 3 hours to keep Mitchell alive and the hunters at bay. Outside the cave, she could hear voices. The surgeon's men had found the cave entrance. Were discussing whether to follow. Chun positioned herself at the tunnel opening, sidearm ready. 6 bullets between her and whatever came next. Then she heard something that made her heart skip. Helicopter rotors. Distant but closing. American birds. Probably the extraction team returning to base. Flying right over this valley. Right over her position. If she could signal them, if they saw her tracker, if Admiral Morrison had sent someone to look. Chun pulled out her last flare. Red smoke. Designed for ground-to-air signaling. But using it would give away their exact position to every Taliban fighter in the valley. It was a choice between certain discovery and possible rescue. Between hiding and hoping or fighting and risking everything. Mitchell saw what she was holding. Do it, he said. Take the chance. Chun crawled to the cave entrance. She could see the helicopter now, a black shape against the pre-dawn sky. A pave hawk. Same bird that had extracted her from Hellman 2 years ago. Same bird that had carried Marcus's body home. She pulled the pin on the flare, tossed it out into the open ground beyond the defile. Red smoke bloomed against the darkness. Bright and unmistakable. The helicopter altered course, banking toward them. Chun felt hope surge through her chest. They had seen it. They were coming. But so was everyone else. The surgeon's voice cut through the mountain air. There, the woman warrior reveals herself. All units converge on that position. She dies tonight. Chun retreated into the cave, pulled Mitchell deeper. The helicopter was coming. The hunters were coming. And somewhere in the next 10 minutes, one of them would arrive first. Chun checked her sidearm one final time. 6 bullets. 1 wounded commander. 1 impossible situation. But Sarah Chun had built her entire career on making impossible look routine. Tonight would be no different. The helicopter rotors grew louder. The hunters' voices grew closer. And Lieutenant Commander Chun settled into a defensive position, ready to hold this cave against whatever came through that entrance. Because that was what SEALs did. They held the line. They protected their own. And they never, ever quit. The first hunter entered the cave 60 seconds after Chun launched the flare. He came fast and aggressive, rifle up, scanning for targets. Chun shot him twice. Center mass. He dropped in a narrow tunnel entrance, his body blocking the passage. 4 bullets left. 2 more hunters tried to push through over their fallen comrade. Chun fired once, missed as her vision swam. The blood loss was catching up. Her hands trembled. She steadied her aim, fired again. Hit. 1 hunter down. The other retreated. 3 bullets left. The helicopter was overhead now. Chun could hear the rotors beating the air, could feel the downdraft rattling loose stones. But the bird was not landing. Could not land. Too many hostiles. Too hot an LZ. The pilot's voice crackled through on emergency frequency, tinny and distant through Chen's damaged earpiece. This is Rescue 3-1. We have visual on red smoke. Heavy ground fire. Cannot extract at this time. Repeat, cannot extract. Request you move to alternate LZ. Chen wanted to laugh. Wanted to scream. Move to an alternate LZ. She could barely move 50 meters without collapsing. Mitchell was minutes from total system failure. And the surgeon had 30 fighters converging on their position. Moving anywhere was suicide. But staying was death. She crawled back to Mitchell. His eyes were closed, but he was still breathing. Shallow. Rapid. She shook him. Commander, we need to move. The bird cannot land here. Mitchell's eyes opened. Unfocused. Distant. He was fading. Going somewhere Chun could not follow. She slapped his face, harder than she meant to. Stay with me. Do not you dare quit on me now. His eyes focused slightly. Sarah. His voice was barely a whisper. Leave me. Signal the bird. Get yourself out. Chun felt something hot and fierce rise in her chest. Anger. Defiance. The same emotion that had carried her through Hell Week when her body screamed to quit. The same fire that had driven her through 3 years of proving herself worthy. I did not drag you 15 kilometers through hostile territory to leave you in a cave. We both get out, or neither of us does." She pulled him upright. His weight nearly took her down. Her leg buckled. She fell to one knee, felt the wound in her side tear wider. Fresh blood soaked through her uniform. Her vision grayed, tunneled. For a moment she thought she might pass out, but she forced herself back, forced the darkness away through sheer stubborn will. The tunnel behind them erupted with gunfire. The hunters were pushing hard now, knowing their prey was wounded and weak. Chun fired blind around the corner. 2 shots. Her last 2 shots. The pistol locked back empty. She dropped the magazine, reached for her last spare, found nothing. She had miscounted, used 1 magazine during the compound escape. She was out. 0 bullets. 1 knife. 1 unconscious commander. 30 enemies. Chun pulled the combat knife from her calf sheath. If they wanted her, they would have to come through this tunnel, and she would kill as many as she could before they brought her down. That was all that was left now, making them pay for every inch. But first she had to get Mitchell somewhere the helicopter could reach him. She looked at the deeper tunnel, the one leading further into the mountain. The Soviet maps she had studied showed this cave system connected to an old supply route that emerged 2 kilometers northwest, closer to friendly territory, closer to possible extraction. It was insane, crawling through unknown tunnels with a dying man while being hunted. But insane was all she had left. Chun started dragging Mitchell deeper into the cave. Every meter was agony. Her leg was useless now, just dead weight she had to drag along with everything else. The wound in her side screamed with each movement. But she kept going, kept crawling, because stopping meant failure, and failure was not acceptable. The tunnel narrowed, dropped, twisted back on itself. Chun lost track of time, lost track of distance. There was only the next meter, the next breath, the next handful of progress through the darkness. Her chem light had died. She was navigating by touch alone, 1 hand on Mitchell, 1 hand feeling the tunnel wall. Behind her, she could hear the hunters following. Their voices echoed through the cave system, distorted and multiplied. They were close, getting closer. Chun's hand found something unexpected. A side passage. Narrow, maybe too narrow for a grown man, but wide enough for her. She pulled Mitchell into the passage. It climbed upward at a steep angle. Chun had to push him from behind, had to wedge herself beneath his weight and drive upward with her 1 good leg. Progress measured in centimeters, in heartbeats, in the raw determination that had defined her entire career. The passage opened suddenly into another chamber, smaller than the last, and at the far end, a shaft of gray light. Pre-dawn. The surface. Chun dragged Mitchell toward it, found a narrow cleft in the rock leading upward. She could see sky, could smell fresh air, could hear the helicopter still circling somewhere above. But she could also hear the hunters in the tunnel behind them, close enough that she could make out individual words now. The surgeon's voice among them, directing, coordinating. They had minutes, maybe less. Chun positioned Mitchell beneath the opening. Then she climbed. Her fingers found holds in the rock face. Her good leg drove upward. The bad leg was just weight, useless, and screaming. But she climbed anyway. Climbed until her hands broke through into open air. Climbed until she could pull herself out onto the mountainside. The valley spread below her. The helicopter was 300 meters west, circling, searching. Chun pulled out her survival mirror, caught the rising sun, flashed the signal. 3 shorts, 3 longs, 3 shorts. SOS. The universal call for help. The bird turned, began moving toward her position. But the surgeon's men were emerging from the cave below. 6 of them, armed, angry, looking up at her with rifles rising. Chun had no weapons, no strength left to fight. She looked at Mitchell still down in the chamber, looked at the helicopter closing, looked at the men about to kill them both. Then she saw it, a weakness in the rock face above the cave entrance, a crack that ran deep, the same kind of structural flaw she had exploited in the compound, the same kind of vulnerability that explosives could turn catastrophic. But she had no explosives left, nobody nuts, No charges. She had herself. Chen pulled herself back down into the chamber, grabbed Mitchell, began pulling him up through the cleft with strength she did not have. Strength borrowed from somewhere beyond her body's limits. Strength that came from the part of her that had refused to quit during BUD/S, that had survived Helmand, that had earned the trident and the respect of men like Commander James Mitchell. She got him halfway up when the first bullets started hitting rock around her. The hunters were firing from below. Chen shielded Mitchell with her own body, felt a round punch through her shoulder. The impact nearly made her let go, nearly sent them both falling back into the chamber. But she held on, kept climbing, kept pulling. The helicopter was overhead now. A rope dropped. A rescue swimmer descended. Strong hands grabbed Mitchell, pulled him up and away. Then hands grabbed Chen. She looked down one last time, saw the surgeon standing in the chamber entrance, saw him raise his rifle, saw him aim. Their eyes met across the distance. She saw something there. Not hatred, not even anger. Respect, acknowledgement. One warrior recognizing another. Then he lowered his weapon, stepped back into the darkness. Let her go. Chen felt herself being pulled into the helicopter. Felt the bird bank hard and accelerate. Felt hands pressing bandages against her wounds. Felt Mitchell's hand finding hers. Both of them alive. Both of them extracted. Against every odd. Against every expectation. The last thing she heard before the exhaustion claimed her was the pilot's voice. Rescue 3-1 to Phoenix Actual. Package secure. Repeat, Ghost and Viper are alive. Both wounded but stable. RTB in 20 minutes. And somewhere far below, Lieutenant Brad Kessler would be receiving that transmission, would be learning that the woman he declared dead had just accomplished the impossible. Chen smiled, then let the darkness take her. Chen woke to white ceiling tiles and the steady beep of medical monitors. Bagram Air Base. The field hospital. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her shoulder, her side, her leg. Every part of her body that had been holding itself together through sheer what was now sending overdue bills. A Navy corpsman appeared at her bedside. Easy, Lieutenant Commander. You have been out for 18 hours. 3 surgeries. You are lucky to be alive. Mitchell, Chen croaked. Her throat was raw. Commander Mitchell. Where's he? The corpsman smiled. 2 rooms down. Stable. Ornery as hell and demanding to see you every 5 minutes. The doctors had to sedate him to keep him in bed. Chen felt relief wash through her. They had made it. Both of them. Against impossible odds, against the surgeon's forces, against the mountains and the blood loss and every tactical reality that said they should have died in that compound. They had survived. The door opened. Admiral James Morrison entered, his expression unreadable. The corpsman snapped to attention and quickly excused himself. The admiral waited until they were alone, then pulled a chair close to Chen's bed. Lieutenant Commander Chen. His voice was measured, controlled. I have read the after-action reports. All of them. From Lieutenant Kessler. From the extraction pilot. From Commander Mitchell's debriefing. He paused. I have also reviewed the helmet cam footage we recovered from the compound and listened to the radio intercepts. Chen met his eyes. Sir, if this is about my decision to pursue the rescue alone, I take full responsibility. I violated the extraction order. I exceeded my authority. I risked Navy assets for a mission that had been deemed unrecoverable. Morrison held up a hand. I am not here to reprimand you, Lieutenant Commander. I am here to tell you what really happened 2 years ago in Helmand Province. Chen felt her chest tighten. Sir, I know what happened. Marcus died, covering my position. I made a tactical error that cost him his life. The Admiral shook his head. That is what you were told. That is what the official report says. But that is not the complete truth. He pulled a folder from his briefcase, opened it. This is the classified after-action assessment. The one that only 3 people have clearance to read. Commander Mitchell, myself, and now you. He handed her a photograph. Drone footage from the Helmand operation. Chen saw herself pinned down behind a low wall, saw Marcus moving to cover her position. But she also saw something she had never known. A Taliban fighter with an RPG, positioned 200 meters behind Marcus, aiming not at her position, but at the medevac helicopter that was inbound to extract wounded. Marcus saw him, Morrison said quietly. Saw the RPG. Knew that if that helicopter went down, 12 wounded Marines would die waiting for extraction. So he made a choice. He broke from your position to engage the RPG gunner. Drew fire from 6 enemy combatants to save that bird. Chun stared at the photograph. Her hands were shaking. I never knew. Nobody ever told me. Because Commander Mitchell requested the information be sealed. He did not want you carrying false guilt. Did not want Marcus's sacrifice diminished by being seen as covering for a teammate's mistake. He wanted his son remembered as the hero he was. The Admiral's expression softened. You did not get Marcus killed, Lieutenant Commander. He died, saving 12 lives. That is the legacy he chose. The door burst open. Commander Mitchell stood there, leaning heavily on a crutch, his arm in a sling, his face still bruised and swollen. But his eyes were clear and fierce. Admiral, you told her. Morrison stood. I did. She earned a right to know. Mitchell moved to Chin's bedside, dismissed the Admiral with a look that said they needed privacy. Morrison nodded and left. When they were alone, Mitchell sat carefully in the chair the Admiral had vacated. I should have told you 2 years ago, he said. Should have told you the moment you brought his body back. But I was angry. At myself. At the universe. At the fact that I never had the courage to tell him I was proud of him while he was alive. Chun felt tears burning. You should have told me he saved that helicopter. That he was a hero. Mitchell's jaw tightened. I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew the truth, you would stop punishing yourself. Stop pushing so hard. Stop becoming the warrior you were meant to be. He shook his head. That was wrong of me. Selfish. You would have become that warrior anyway. The pushing, the impossible standards, the refusal to quit. That is who you are, who you have always been. Is that why you requested me for this mission? Chin asked. Because you knew I would not leave you behind? Because you knew I carried guilt over Marcus? Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. I requested you because you're the finest operator I have ever worked with. Because when the mission went bad, I knew if anyone could survive the impossible, it was you. But yes, I also knew that you would come back for me. Just like Marcus came back for those Marines. Just like you came back for me in Helmand when my position was overrun 3 months after we lost them. Chin remembered that mission. A small outpost under assault. Mitchell wounded and separated from his unit. Chin had been 2 kilometers away on a different operation when the call came through. She had moved without orders, without backup, had fought her way through enemy lines to pull him out. She had never thought about why she did it. Had just known it was necessary. We take care of our own, Chin said. That is what SEALs do. Mitchell reached out, took her hand. The hand that had dragged him 15 kilometers through hostile territory. That had held a defensive position with 6 bullets. That had climbed a rock face with a bullet wound and pulled him to safety. That is what warriors do. And you, Sarah Chun, are a warrior. Not despite being a woman. Not because you have to prove something. You just are. The door opened again. This time it was Lieutenant Brad Kessler. He stood in the doorway, his face carefully neutral. His eyes moved from Mitchell to Chun and back. Commander. Lieutenant Commander. His voice was stiff. I was told you were both awake. I came to debrief the mission. Mitchell's expression hardened. You came to explain why you left us behind. Kessler's jaw tightened. I made the tactical decision based on available intelligence. The mission was compromised. Chin was confirmed Kia. You were MIA in enemy hands. Returning would have risked 6 more lives for a rescue that had minimal chance of success. Minimal chance, Chin said quietly. Not 0 chance. Kessler turned to her. His eyes were cold. You violated direct orders. You pursued a solo rescue operation against explicit commands. You risked a Navy asset by signaling that helicopter. By every regulation, you should face a court-martial. Mitchell stood, moving carefully but with unmistakable authority. Lieutenant Kessler, you are relieved. Effective immediately. Return to your quarters and await formal reassignment. Kessler's face flushed red. Sir, you do not have the authority to relieve me. Only Admiral Morrison can make that determination. The door opened a 3rd time. Morrison stood there, his expression granite. Lieutenant Kessler, I have reviewed the mission recordings, including the part where you refused extraction support despite confirmed life signs from Lieutenant Commander Chen's tracker, despite helicopter crews volunteering to attempt rescue, despite my direct order to maintain overwatch until the situation was confirmed terminal. Sir, I made the call based on tactical assessment, Kessler protested. You made the call based on personal bias, Morrison said. You have opposed Lieutenant Commander Chen's assignment from day one, questioned her qualifications despite her record, and when the mission went bad, you used it as justification to abandon both her and Commander Mitchell. He stepped closer. That is not tactical assessment. That is dereliction of duty. Kessler looked like he had been struck. Admiral, I have served this country for 12 years. I have never abandoned a teammate. Morrison's voice was ice. Then explain why you ordered the extraction bird to abort when Lieutenant Commander Chen was visible on the mountainside with Commander Mitchell. Explain why you countermanded my direct order to maintain rescue operations. Explain why you filed a Kia report on Chen before her tracker went dark. Kessler had no answer. He stood there, silent, his career crumbling around him. You are reassigned to administrative duties pending investigation, Morrison continued. Lieutenant Commander Chen will assume your position as second in command effective immediately upon her medical clearance. The room was silent. Chen looked at Mitchell, saw pride in his eyes, saw the acknowledgement she had been fighting for since the day she earned her trident. Not because she was a woman breaking barriers, but because she was a warrior who had proven herself in the only way that mattered. Through courage, through sacrifice, through refusing to leave a teammate behind. Kessler saluted stiffly and left. When he was gone, Morrison turned to Chen. You have 2 weeks to recover. Then we have work to do. The surgeon is still out there. And after what happened in that valley, he knows who you are, knows what you are capable of. This is not over. Chen met his eyes. Good, because I have unfinished business with him too. Mitchell smiled. That is my girl. Always ready for the next fight. But for now, Morrison said, you rest, you heal, and you let these wounds close. He moved toward the door, then paused. Marcus would be proud of you, Lieutenant Commander. We all are. When he left, Chen and Mitchell sat in comfortable silence. 2 warriors who had survived the impossible. 2 people bound by loss and loyalty and the unbreakable code of those who wore the trident. Outside, the sun was setting over the Afghan mountains. Inside, Sarah Chen closed her eyes and let herself rest. The fight was not over. But for now, for this moment, she had won. 2 weeks later, Chen stood in the briefing room at Bagram, her shoulders still stiff but functional, her legs strong enough to bear weight without the crutch. The doctors had cleared her for light duty. She had immediately volunteered for full operational status. Admiral Morrison had compromised by assigning her to intelligence analysis and mission planning. It was not the frontline action she craved, but it kept her in the fight. Mitchell sat beside her, his arm out of the sling, reviewing satellite imagery on the display screen. The rest of the team filled the room. 5 SEALs who had been part of the original mission. Men who had declared her dead and left her behind. Men who now looked at her with a mixture of respect and shame. Morrison entered, and the room came to attention. At ease, he moved to the front of the room, pulled up a map of Kiener Province. Over the past 2 weeks, we have intercepted significant chatter about the surgeon. Our assets indicate he has been asking questions about Lieutenant Commander Chen, about her background, her training, her family. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of questions? Morrison's expression was grim. The kind that suggests he is not finished with you. Our intelligence indicates he sees your escape as a personal failure, a stain on his reputation. He has reportedly told his fighters that he will not rest until he has proven that the woman warrior was just lucky, that given a fair fight, she would fall like any other American. One of the SEALs spoke up. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Rodriguez, the team's breacher. So what is the play, Admiral? We wait for him to make a move? Set a trap? Morrison shook his head. We do neither. We take the fight to him. He pulled up new imagery. 3 days ago, one of our informants in Pakistan reported that the surgeon's second-in-command was seen in Peshawar. He was recruiting, building a new cell. We believe he is planning something significant, something that requires more resources than his current operation can provide. Mitchell leaned forward. What is the target? Morrison pulled up another image. Camp Chapman, the CIA base in Khost. Our intelligence suggests the surgeon has acquired detailed information about our security protocols. Personnel schedule. Weak points in our defensive perimeter. He is planning a major attack, something that will kill Americans and make a statement. Chun studied the imagery. How solid is this intel? Solid enough that I am authorizing a preemptive strike. Morrison looked directly at her. And I want you to lead it. The room went silent. Chun felt I turned to her. Sir, I appreciate the confidence, but I have been cleared for light duty only. I am not at full operational capacity. Morrison's expression did not change. You will not be going into the field. You will be coordinating the operation from here, using your tactical expertise to guide the team. Commander Mitchell will be your second. He gestured to the other SEALs. These men will execute on the ground. Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. Sir, with respect, Lieutenant Commander Chun has limited field experience coordinating multi-team operations. Would it not be more appropriate to have someone with more command experience leading this? Chun felt the old familiar anger rise, the doubt, the questioning. But before she could respond, Mitchell spoke, his voice cutting. Petty Officer Rodriguez, Lieutenant Commander Chun, just conducted the most successful solo extraction operation in SEAL history. She navigated 15 kilometers of hostile territory with no support, no communications, and critical injuries. She held defensive positions against overwhelming odds and successfully coordinated her own rescue under direct enemy fire. His eyes swept the room. If you question her tactical capability, you question your own judgment, because she did what you all deemed impossible. Rodriguez had the grace to look ashamed. No disrespect intended. Sir, I just want to make sure we have the right person for the job. You do, Morrison said flatly. Lieutenant Commander Chun has something the rest of you lack. She has looked the surgeon in the eyes. She has fought him and survived. She knows how he thinks, how he operates. That knowledge is invaluable. Chun straightened. When do we move? 72 hours. Morrison pulled up a detailed tactical map. The surgeon's second-in-command is meeting with weapon suppliers in Peshawar. We intercept that meeting, we capture him, we extract intelligence about the Chapman attack. Then we use that intelligence to eliminate the surgeon's entire network before they can strike. Mitchell studied the map. This is deep into Pakistan, officially denied territory. If we are caught, it becomes an international incident. Morrison nodded, which is why this operation does not exist. You go in clean. No insignia. No identificación. If you are captured, the United States will deny any knowledge of your presence. He paused. But you will not be captured, because Lieutenant Commander Chun is going to make sure every detail of this operation is perfect. For the next 3 days, Chun lived in the operation center. She studied satellite imagery until she could navigate the Peshawar streets in her sleep. She reviewed intelligence reports on the surgeon's second-in-command, a former Pakistani military officer named Tariq Bashir. She coordinated with CIA assets on the ground, arranged extraction routes, planned contingencies for every possible complication. Mitchell worked beside her, offering insights from his 20 years of experience, trusting her judgment even when it contradicted conventional wisdom. The rest of the team slowly came around, asking her opinion, deferring to her tactical assessments, treating her not as the woman they had to tolerate, but as the operator they needed to follow. On the third night, Rodriguez approached her in the operations center. Lieutenant Commander, can I speak freely? Chun looked up from the maps. Always. He took a breath. I owe you an apology. When we pulled out of that compound, when we left you behind, I told myself we were making the right tactical call, that we were following orders, that we were protecting the team. But the truth is, part of me was relieved. Relieved that I did not have to risk my life for someone I had not fully accepted as one of us. Chun waited. Let him finish. Watching the footage of what you did, Rodriguez continued. Seeing you extract Commander Mitchell alone. Seeing you hold that position with 6 bullets and a knife. His voice caught. That is the kind of warrior I want watching my back. That is the kind of leader I want making the calls when things go bad. I was wrong about you. I am sorry it took seeing you nearly die to figure that out. Chun stood, extended her hand. We all have blind spots, Rodriguez. The important thing is recognizing them and doing better. She gripped his hand firmly. Now, let us make sure this operation goes clean. Because the surgeon is out there planning to kill Americans, and we're going to stop him. Rodriguez smiled. Yes, ma'am. The operation launched at 0200 hours. Chun sat in the operations center, watching drone feeds, listening to radio traffic, coordinating the moving pieces of a complex insertion into hostile territory. The team moved through Peshawar like ghosts, avoiding Pakistani military patrols, civilian populations, the countless eyes that could compromise the mission. They reached the target building at 0347 hours. The same time Chun had been declared dead 2 weeks earlier. She thought about the symmetry, about how much had changed in those 2 weeks, about how she had gone from dead woman to tactical coordinator, from abandoned to essential. The team made entry. Chun watched through their helmet cams as they cleared rooms, secured hostiles, located Tariq Bashir, trying to escape through a back window. Rodriguez took him down with a perfectly executed tackle, zip-tied him, called for extraction. Package secured, Rodriguez reported. Building clear. No casualties. Ready for exfil. Chun coordinated the extraction, guided them through the streets to the pickup point, watched the helicopter lift off with Bashir secured and the team intact. Mission success. Clean execution. 0 complications. When the bird touched down at Bagram 90 minutes later, Morrison was waiting. He pulled Chun aside as the team disembarked. Flawless operation, Lieutenant Commander. Textbook planning and execution. He paused. Bashir is already talking, giving us everything we need to dismantle the surgeon's network. This is going to save lives. Chun watched her team celebrating, watched Mitchell clap Rodriguez on the shoulder, watched men who had once doubted her now trusting her completely. Thank you, sir. But this is not over. Not until the surgeon is stopped. Morrison's expression turned serious. Bashir confirmed something troubling. The surgeon has put a price on your head. $500,000 to anyone who brings him proof of your death. He has made it personal. Good, Chun said. Because so have I. That man tried to kill Commander Mitchell. Tried to kill me. Is planning to kill more Americans. She met Morrison's eyes. I want to be there when we take him down. The Admiral studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. When we find him, you will have your chance. But Chun, remember something. The surgeon respects you. He let you live when he could have killed you. That respect can be a weapon, or it can be a weakness. Make sure you know which. Chun thought about that moment in the cave. The surgeon lowering his rifle, stepping back, letting her go. She did not understand it then, did not understand it now. But she would, because the next time they met, one of them would not walk away. The intelligence from Tariq Bashir proved more valuable than anyone expected. Within 48 hours, CIA analysts had mapped the surgeon's entire network. Safe houses, supply routes, communication protocols, and most importantly, the location of his primary base of operations. A fortified compound in the Tora Bora region, the same mountain complex where Osama bin Laden had once hidden. Morrison called an emergency briefing. The entire SEAL team assembled, along with CIA operatives and Air Force combat controllers. The Admiral pulled up imagery of the compound on the main screen. Satellite shows approximately 40 fighters in residence. Heavy weapons, hardened positions. The surgeon himself confirmed on site as of 6 hours ago. Mitchell leaned forward. That is a fortress. Assaulting it directly would require a full platoon and air support. We would lose people. Morrison nodded, which is why we are not assaulting it. We are isolating it. He pulled up a tactical overlay. The compound has one road in and out. We cut that road, establish overwatch, wait for the surgeon to make a move. When he does, we take him. Chun studied the terrain. That could take days, weeks. He has supplies for a long siege. The Admiral smiled grimly. Not anymore. Bashir gave us the location of his supply cache. We hit it tonight. Cut off his food, water, ammunition. Force him to either surrender or attempt to break out. Either way, we control the engagement. Rodriguez spoke up. Who leads the siege operation? Morrison looked at Chun. Lieutenant Commander Chun will coordinate from forward operating base. Commander Mitchell will be ground commander. The rest of you will rotate on overwatch positions. This is a waiting game. Patience and discipline will win it. That night, a small team destroyed the surgeon's supply cache. $200,000 in weapons and provisions went up in flames. By morning, the surgeon would know he was trapped. The question was how he would respond. Chun established the forward operating base 3 kilometers from the target compound. Close enough to coordinate, but far enough to remain concealed. She set up surveillance, assigned watch rotations, coordinated with drone operators providing real-time imagery. Then she waited. The first day passed without movement. The second day brought occasional activity, but no attempt to break out. On the third day, Mitchell radioed from his overwatch position. We have movement. Front gate opening. Single vehicle departing. Chun pulled up the drone feed. A truck moving fast down the mountain road. She could see 2 occupants, driver and passenger. The passenger's profile matched the surgeon. This is it. All units stand by for intercept. The truck approached the roadblock that SEAL teams had established 5 kilometers down the mountain. Chun watched through multiple camera angles as the vehicle slowed, stopped. 2 SEALs approached with weapons ready. The driver stepped out, hands raised. Then the passenger door opened. But it was not the surgeon. It was a woman, elderly, traditional dress. She started shouting in Pashto, gesturing wildly. The interpreter translated. She says her grandson is sick, needs medical attention. Says she was told there were Americans who could help. Chun felt her stomach drop. It was a diversion. Had to be. She pulled up the compound feed. The main gate was still closed, but something felt wrong. She enhanced the image, counted fighters visible in the courtyard. 20. Yesterday, there had been 40. They're already out, she said into the radio. The surgeon moved half his force before we even saw the truck. Mitchell, check your sector for signs of tunnel exit points. Mitchell's voice came back tense. Nothing visible, but these mountains are honeycombed with old Soviet tunnels. They could have exited anywhere within a kilometer radius. Chun made a decision. Rodriguez, take 4 men and sweep north. Patterson, take your team south. Mitchell, hold position on the compound. I am moving to intercept position Alpha. Sir, Rodriguez protested, you're not cleared for field operations. I am cleared for whatever keeps this team alive. Chun snapped. Move out. She grabbed her gear, checked her sidearm. The doctors had returned her primary weapon after medical clearance. 17 rounds felt reassuring in her hand. She moved out of the operations base, heading toward the position where tactical analysis suggested the surgeon would emerge if he was using the old tunnel system. The mountain was quiet. Too quiet. Chun moved carefully, using cover, scanning for threats. Her leg ached but held. Her shoulder was stiff but functional. She reached the ridgeline overlooking a narrow valley and went prone behind a rocky outcrop. Her radio crackled. Chun, this is Mitchell. Compound is emptying. They are blowing the ammunition stores. This is a full evacuation. Copy that. Chun scanned the valley below. Saw movement. Counted 20 fighters moving in tactical formation through the rocks. And leading them, unmistakable even at this distance, was the surgeon. She keyed her radio. I have visual on primary target. 20 hostiles. Moving northwest toward the Pakistani border. Mitchell's voice was sharp. Do not engage. Wait for support. But Chun was already calculating. The surgeon would cross into Pakistan in 15 minutes. Once across that border, he disappeared. Became untouchable. This was the only chance. She thought about Camp Chapman. About the Americans who would die if the surgeon escaped. About the price he had put on her head. About Marcus dying to save 12 Marines. She made her choice. Engaging, she said calmly. Then she switched off her radio. Chun moved down the slope, using the terrain, getting closer. 200 meters. 150. She needed to be within effective pistol range, needed to make every shot count, because she would only get one chance before 20 rifles turned her position into a kill zone. At 100 meters, she found her spot, a depression behind rocks that gave her cover and a clear line of sight. She drew her sidearm, controlled her breathing, waited for the moment. The surgeon raised his hand. The formation stopped. He turned, looking back at the mountain they had just left, looking directly at Chen's position as if he knew she was there. Then he smiled, raised his voice to carry across the distance. "I knew you would come, woman warrior. Knew you could not resist." He gestured to his men. They fanned out, taking positions, rifles aimed at her cover. "You are alone again, outgunned again. But this time there is no cave to hide in. No helicopter coming to save you." Chen stood, walked out from behind the rocks, holstered her sidearm. The surgeon's men tensed, but he held up a hand, stopping them from firing. She stopped 20 meters away, close enough to see his face clearly. "You let me live," she said. "In the cave. You could have killed me, but you stepped back. Why?" The surgeon studied her. "Because you earned it. Because you fought with honor. Because you showed me that perhaps the Americans are not all soft, that some still understand what it means to be a warrior." He paused. "But that was then. Now you are here to kill me, and I cannot let that stand." Chen shook her head. "I'm here to give you a choice. Surrender, stand trial, or die on this mountain. But if you choose to die, know that I will not miss. Know that at this range, with this shot, you will not see it coming." The surgeon laughed. "You have one pistol. I have 20 rifles. Even if you kill me, my men will cut you down. You cannot win this." "Maybe not," Chen said, "but you will still be dead, and your network will collapse without you. Bashir already gave us everything. Your supply lines, your safe houses, your contacts in Pakistan. Even if I die here, your war is over." The surgeon's expression hardened. "Then we die together. A fitting end for two warriors." Chen heard the sound then. Helicopter rotors. Multiple birds. Coming fast from the south. The surgeon heard it too. His eyes went wide. She had not turned off her radio. Had left the channel open. Mitchell had heard everything. Had called in the cavalry. 3 Pave Hawks crested the ridge. Door guns opened up, suppressing fire, chewing up the ground around the surgeon's position. His men scattered, seeking cover, returning fire. The surgeon looked at Chen one last time. "You are better than I thought," he said. Then he turned and ran, his men covering his retreat, heading for the border at a full sprint. Chen could have shot him in the back, had a clear line, but something stopped her. Mitchell's words. Respect can be a weapon or a weakness. She let him run, watched him disappear into Pakistan, watched the helicopters land and SEALs pour out, securing the valley, capturing 3 of the surgeon's men who were too slow to escape. Mitchell reached her first. His face was furious and relieved in equal measure. "What were you thinking? Going in alone? You could have been killed." She met his eyes. "I was thinking that some fights you have to take yourself, some enemies you have to face alone." She paused, "And I was thinking that the surgeon earned his escape. He let me live. I returned the favor." Mitchell's expression softened. "That is going to be a hard sell to Morrison." "Then let me handle Morrison," Chen said. She looked at the captured fighters being zip-tied and loaded onto the helicopters. "We got 3 of his men. We destroyed his network. We stopped the Chapman attack." She turned back to Mitchell. "And we showed the surgeon that Americans do not quit, that we do not abandon our own. That is worth more than 1 kill." The helicopter ride back to Bagram was quiet. Chen knew she would face questions. Knew Morrison would demand answers for why she let the surgeon escape. But she also knew something the Admiral did not. The surgeon was finished in Afghanistan. His network destroyed. His reputation damaged by being forced to flee from a single American operator. He would fade into Pakistan, become irrelevant. And Chen had proven something more important than revenge. She had proven that honor mattered, that the fight was about more than just killing. It was about standing for something, being something, earning the respect even of enemies. When they landed, Morrison was waiting. His expression was unreadable. "We need to talk, Lieutenant Commander." "Yes, sir," Chen said. "We do." Morrison's office was cold and austere. Chun stood at attention while the admiral sat behind his desk, reviewing her written report. Mitchell stood beside her, his expression neutral, but his presence supportive. The silence stretched for a full minute before Morrison spoke. You had a clear shot. You had authorization to eliminate a high-value target. You had 20 witnesses who would confirm the surgeon was armed and hostile. Instead, you let him walk into Pakistan where we cannot touch him. He looked up. Explain your reasoning, Lieutenant Commander. Chun met his gaze steadily. Sir, the mission objective was to prevent the attack on Camp Chapman and dismantle the surgeon's network. Both objectives were achieved. Killing the surgeon himself was secondary to those goals. Morrison's eyes narrowed. That is a rationalization, not an explanation. Chun took a breath. The truth, sir, is that the surgeon let me live when he did not have to. In that cave, he lowered his weapon, showed me the kind of honor that we claimed to fight for. If I shot him in the back while he was retreating, I would have proven him right. That Americans have no honor. That we are just killers hiding behind justifications. The admiral leaned back in his chair. So you made a strategic decision based on the propaganda value of letting an enemy escape. No, sir, Chun said quietly. I made a human decision based on the kind of warrior I want to be. The kind Marcus was. The kind Commander Mitchell taught me to be. She paused. The surgeon is finished in Afghanistan. His network is destroyed. His reputation is ruined. He will spend the rest of his life in Pakistan knowing that an American woman beat him. That is a better victory than a bullet. Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then he closed the report. If I were a different kind of officer, I would court-martial you for this. Disobeying orders. Engaging without support. Letting a high-value target escape. But he stood, moved to the window overlooking the base. I'm not a different kind of officer. I am the kind who recognizes that sometimes the right decision is not the one that looks good in after-action reports. He turned to face them. The 3 fighters we captured are providing excellent intelligence. The Chapman attack has been completely disrupted. Pakistani intelligence confirms the surgeon has fled to Karachi and gone aground. For all practical purposes, he is out of the fight. He paused. Your tactical decision, while unorthodox, achieved the mission objectives. I am closing this matter with a notation of mission success. Chun felt relief wash through her. Thank you, sir. But Morrison was not finished. However, your actions in the field demonstrate that you are not suited for a desk coordination role. You are a frontline operator. You need to be where the action is, making split-second decisions, leading from the front. He pulled a folder from his desk. I am assigning you to a new position. SEAL Team 7 needs an executive officer. You will report to Commander Hayes in San Diego in 2 weeks. Chen's breath caught. Sir, that is a stateside assignment. I am not ready to leave the fight. The fight is not just here, Morrison said. It is everywhere we ask young men and women to serve. And they need leaders who have proven themselves in impossible situations. Leaders who understand what it means to never leave a teammate behind. He extended the folder. You have proven yourself here, Lieutenant Commander. Now go prove yourself at home. Chun took the folder, opened it, saw the orders, saw the promotion paperwork, saw her future laid out in official Navy documentation. She looked at Mitchell. The commander was smiling. Congratulations, he said. You earned it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of debriefings, paperwork, and goodbyes. Chun trained her replacement, a seasoned chief petty officer who listened carefully to her tactical insights. She coordinated one final mission, a successful raid on a weapons cache that netted 15 enemy fighters. She said goodbye to Rodriguez and the team, men who had once doubted her and now called her one of the finest operators they had served with. On her last night at Bagram, Mitchell found her on the roof of the operations center. She was watching the sun set over the mountains where she had nearly died, where she had dragged him 15 kilometers through enemy territory, where she had become the warrior she was meant to be. Thinking about the surgeon? Mitchell asked. Chun shook her head. Thinking about Marcus, about how he would have loved this view, about how he died, saving people he did not even know, about how that kind of sacrifice is what makes us different from the enemy. Mitchell stood beside her. Marcus knew what he was fighting for, what he was willing to die for. Just like you know, Just like every person who wears this uniform knows. He paused. I never told you this, but Marcus talked about you. Before Hellmand. Said you were going to be the one who changed everything. Who proved that women belonged in the teams, not because of politics, but because of excellence. Chun felt tears threaten. Did he really say that? He did. And he was right. You changed everything, Sarah. Not just for women. For all of us. You reminded us what it means to be a SEAL. To never quit. To never leave a teammate. To fight with honor, even when no one is watching. They stood in silence as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Then Mitchell handed her something. A small box. Chun opened it. Inside was Marcus's trident pin. The one he had worn through 3 deployments. The one that had been returned to his father after his death. I want you to have it, Mitchell said. Want you to remember that you carry his legacy. Not because you owe him anything, but because you earned the right to stand beside him. To be counted among the warriors who define what this community means. Chun closed the box carefully. Sir, I cannot take this. This belongs to you. Your son's trident. Mitchell shook his head. My son's trident belongs to the warrior he believed in. The one he knew would carry the fight forward. That is you. He put his hand on her shoulder. Wear it with pride. Teach the next generation. Show them what excellence looks like regardless of gender. Show them what Marcus showed me. That courage has no prerequisites except heart. The flight home left the next morning. Chun sat in the cargo plane, surrounded by deploying soldiers heading back to the States. She held Marcus's trident in her hand, feeling the weight of it. The responsibility. The legacy. She thought about the past month. About nearly dying in a burning compound. About dragging Mitchell through the mountains. About facing the surgeon twice and walking away both times. About proving herself to men who had doubted her. About earning respect through actions instead of words. She thought about the young woman who had arrived in Afghanistan 4 months ago. Determined, driven, carrying guilt over a death that was not her fault. Fighting to prove she belonged. That woman felt like a stranger now. Chun had become someone different in these mountains. Someone stronger. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who understood that being a warrior was not about proving anything to anyone. It was about living up to your own standards. Your own code. Your own definition of honor. The plane touched down in San Diego 18 hours later. Chun stepped off into California's sunshine. Saw her new team waiting. Commander Hayes, a 20-year veteran with silver hair and kind eyes. He extended his hand. Lieutenant Commander Chun, welcome to Team 7. I have heard quite a bit about you. About the impossible rescue. About holding a defensive position with 6 bullets. About letting the surgeon walk because honor mattered more than revenge. He smiled. I think you're going to fit in perfectly here. Chun shook his hand. Thank you, sir. I'm ready to get to work. Hayes led her toward a waiting vehicle. Your first assignment starts tomorrow. We have a new class of SEAL candidates starting Hell Week. I want you observing, evaluating, looking for the ones who have what it takes. He glanced at her, and I want you giving a lecture on leadership, on what it means to never quit, on what real warriors look like. Chun thought about the lecture she would give, about the lessons learned in Afghan mountains, about Marcus and Mitchell and Rodriguez and every person who had taught her what it meant to wear the trident, about the surgeon and the strange respect between enemies who understood each other, about honor and sacrifice and the difference between killing and winning. She thought about the young candidates who would sit in that classroom, men and women who dreamed of becoming SEALs, who would face their own impossible moments, their own tests of character, their own choices between easy and right. She would tell them the truth, that being a warrior was hard, that proving yourself never stopped, that doubt and fear were constant companions, but that on the other side of impossible was something worth every sacrifice. The knowledge that you stood when others fell, that you fought when others quit, that you became something rare and precious and necessary. The vehicle pulled up to the Team 7 compound. Chun stepped out, squared her shoulders, and walked toward her future. Behind her was Afghanistan and the mountains and the woman who nearly died. Ahead was California and a new team and the warrior who survived. She wore both identities now, carried both stories. and she would use them to forge the next generation of operators who would carry the fight forward when she was gone. Marcus's trident pressed against her chest. A reminder, a promise, a legacy. Chun touched it once, feeling the metal warm from her body heat. Then she walked into the compound, ready for whatever came next. Because that was what warriors did. They kept moving forward. Always. 6 months later, Chun stood before a classroom of SEAL candidates at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. 40 men and women who had survived the first week of basic underwater demolition training. 40 people who thought they knew what hard looked like. She was about to teach them differently. The room fell silent as she entered. Some recognized her from news coverage of her Afghanistan rescue. Others just saw the trident on her chest and the rank on her collar. All of them saw someone who had earned the right to speak. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chun," she began. 6 months ago, I was declared killed in action during a mission in Afghanistan. My team pulled out. The extraction order was given. I was left behind with my commander, both of us wounded, surrounded by enemy fighters in the middle of hostile territory. She paused. This is the story of how we survived. And more importantly, why we survived. For the next hour, Chun took them through every detail. The burning compound. The decision to pursue the rescue alone. The 15-kilometer extraction with a fractured leg and shrapnel wounds. The cave defense with 6 bullets. The impossible climb that should have killed her. She did not glorify it. Did not make herself a hero. She just told the truth. The pain. The fear. The moments when quitting seemed rational. And the choice to keep moving anyway. When she finished, a young woman in the front row raised her hand. Seaman recruit Lisa Park. "Sir, how did you know you could make it? How did you know you would not die trying?" Chun met her eyes. "I did not know. In fact, all the evidence suggested I would die. The tactical analysis said it was impossible. The odds were mathematically against survival. My own body was shutting down." She leaned forward. "But here's what I learned. Knowing you can make it is not what gets you through impossible situations. Commitment gets you through. The decision that you will keep moving until your body literally stops working. That you will not quit while breath remains. That is what separates operators who survive from those who do not." Another recruit spoke up. Male. Young. Confident. Seaman recruit James Morrison. "But sir, you had training. Skills. Combat experience. What about those of us who are just starting? How do we know if we have what it takes?" Chun smiled. "You do not know. None of us knew. I did not know if I could make it through BUD/S until I did. Did not know if I could handle combat until I was in it. Did not know if I could survive that mountain until I climbed it." She gestured around the room. "Every person who has ever worn this trident started exactly where you are. Uncertain, untested, wondering if they had what it takes. The only way to find out is to refuse to quit." The lecture ended. The candidates filed out. But Park remained behind, waiting until the room was empty. Chun saw something in her eyes. Recognition. Understanding. The look of someone carrying weight. "You have a question you did not want to ask in front of the others," Chun said. Park nodded. "Sir, some of the instructors have been harder on the women in the class. Nothing official. Nothing they would admit. Just little comments. Extra scrutiny. Making it clear they think we do not belong." She met Chen's gaze. "How did you deal with that? How did you keep going when people were waiting for you to fail?" Tin remembered Kisla. Remembered the doubt in Rodriguez's eyes. Remembered every skeptical look and dismissive comment. "I used it as fuel. Every person who doubted me became another reason to succeed. Every comment about women not belonging became another rep in the gym. Another hour on the range. Another mile on the run." She paused. "But here is the more important truth. Eventually, you stop trying to prove them wrong and start proving yourself right. You stop caring about their doubt and start focusing on your own excellence." Park's eyes were bright. "Did it get easier once you proved yourself?" Chun shook her head. "It got different. The doubt from others decreased, but the responsibility increased. Now I carry the weight of representing every woman who wants to earn this trident. Every young girl who sees my story and thinks maybe she can do hard things too. That weight is heavier than doubt, but is also more meaningful." Park stood, straightened. "Thank you, sir. I needed to hear that." Chen watched her leave, saw the determination in her shoulders, saw a younger version of herself walking out that door. She hoped Park made it, hoped the young woman had the fire to survive Hell Week and everything that came after. But hoping was all she could do. The rest was up to Park. That evening, Chen met Mitchell for dinner at a restaurant in downtown San Diego. The commander had taken a teaching position at the Naval Postgraduate School, mentoring the next generation of SEAL leaders. His arm was fully healed, his strength returned. But something in his eyes had changed, softened, as if surviving the mountain had given him permission to be something other than the hardened warrior. "How is the new team?" he asked. "Good." Chen cut her steak. "Commander Hayes is excellent. The operators respect experience over politics. I am learning as much as I am teaching." She smiled. "It is different from Afghanistan, but it is still the fight, just a different battlefield." Mitchell nodded. "I got word from Morrison. The surgeon surfaced briefly in Karachi. Pakistani intelligence tracked him for 3 days before losing him again. He is still alive, but irrelevant. His network is gone. His reputation destroyed. For all practical purposes, you ended his war." Chen thought about that moment on the mountain. The choice to let him live. Does he know it was me? That I let him go? Mitchell sipped his water. According to intercepts, he does. He told someone that the American woman warrior had honor, that she was worth more respect than most men he had fought. He paused. That is high praise from someone like him. "Strange how things work out," Chen said. 6 months ago, I hated him, wanted him dead for what he did to you, to us. Now I almost respect him, not for what he did, but for how he did it, for the code he followed." Mitchell's expression turned serious. "That is the hardest lesson of war. The enemy is not always evil. Sometimes they are just on the other side, fighting for things they believe in as deeply as we believe in our cause. Recognizing their humanity does not mean accepting their actions. It just means understanding that this fight is more complex than good versus evil." Chen's phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Morrison. She read it, felt her heart skip. "Sir, you need to see this." She handed Mitchell the phone. He read the message, then read it again. His expression shifted through surprise to concern to something like pride. "They want you to testify before Congress. About the rescue. About women in combat roles. About what it takes to succeed in special operations." Chen felt anxiety twist in her stomach. "That is political. I am an operator, not a spokesperson." Mitchell handed back the phone. "You're both now, whether you want to be or not. Your story matters, not just for you, for every woman who comes after, for Park and the hundreds like her who need to see that the path is possible." Chen thought about Park's question, about the weight of representation, about how personal excellence had become public responsibility. She had not asked for this, had just wanted to be a SEAL, to serve, to prove herself worthy. But somewhere along the way, her story had become bigger than her. "I will do it," she said, "but I will tell the truth. Not the sanitized version, not the feel-good narrative about breaking barriers. I will tell them about the pain and the doubt and the moments when quitting seemed rational. About how being a warrior is hard regardless of gender. About how excellence is the only credential that matters." Mitchell smiled. "That is exactly what they need to hear, and exactly what you are qualified to say." 3 weeks later, Chen stood in a hearing room in Washington, D.C. Senators and representatives filled the seats. Cameras recorded every word. She wore her dress uniform, Marcus's trident beside her own. Mitchell sat in the gallery, his presence a reminder of why she was here. The committee chairman opened with questions about the rescue, about her training, about the physical and mental demands of special operations. Chen answered each question directly, honestly, without embellishment or false modesty. She told them the truth, that she had been terrified, that she had almost died. That luck and training and stubborn refusal to quit had saved her. Then a senator asked the question Chen had been waiting for. "Lieutenant Commander, do you believe the standards for special operations should be lowered to allow more women to qualify?" Chen leaned into the microphone. "Absolutely not, Senator. The standards exist for a reason. They ensure that every operator can perform under the worst possible conditions. Lowering them would not help women. It would get people killed, She paused. What needs to change is not the standards. What needs to change is the assumption that women cannot meet them. Give us the chance to try. Give us the same training, the same opportunities, the same respect when we succeed. Do not lower the bar. Just stop telling us we are too weak to reach it. The room was silent. Then scattered applause from the gallery. Mitchell was clapping. So was Admiral Morrison, who had flown in to observe. So were 3 young women in military uniforms, SEAL candidates who had taken leave to watch. Another senator spoke. Some argue that unit cohesion suffers when women are integrated into combat units. That men will take unnecessary risks to protect female teammates. How do you respond? Chen thought about Rodriguez, about the team that had once doubted her and now trusted her completely. Unit cohesion suffers when operators are not properly trained or vetted. Gender has nothing to do with it. In Afghanistan, my male teammates trusted me because I proved I could do the job, because I would not quit, because I would come back for them just as they would come back for me. She met the senator's eyes. Trust is earned through actions, not assumed through anatomy. The hearing lasted 3 hours. When it ended, Chen walked out into the hallway. Park was waiting with the other SEAL candidates. The young woman's eyes were bright with emotion. Thank you, sir, for saying what needed to be said. Chen put her hand on Park's shoulder. Now you go say it with your actions. You make it through Hell Week. You earn that trident. You prove that excellence has no gender. That is how we change things, one operator at a time. That night, alone in her hotel room, Chen took out Marcus's trident, held it in her hands, thought about the young man who had believed in her before she believed in herself, who had died saving others, whose legacy she now carried forward. Hell Week began on a Sunday night. Chen stood on the beach at Coronado watching the candidates assemble. 40 souls who thought they were prepared, who believed their physical training and mental toughness would carry them through. Most would quit before Wednesday. The rest would discover what they were truly made of. Park was among them. Seaman recruit Lisa Park, standing at attention in the cold Pacific wind, her face set with determination. Chen watched her carefully, watched all the candidates, looking for the ones who would make it, the ones who had that indefinable quality that separated operators from everyone else. Commander Hayes stood beside Chen. What do you see when you look at them? Chen considered the question. I see people who do not know themselves yet, who think they understand their limits. Hell Week exists to show them they were wrong about those limits, that they can go further than they ever imagined. She paused. Park will make it. So will Morrison. Maybe 6 others. The rest will find their breaking point. Hayes nodded. Hell Week is not about physical capability. It is about the moment when your body is screaming to quit and your mind has to make a choice. Keep going or give up. Most people have never faced that choice, never had to look their own weakness in the eyes and decide if they accept it. The instructors began. Within an hour, candidates were soaking wet, covered in sand, doing endless repetitions of exercises designed to break them. Chen watched Park struggle through flutter kicks. Watch Morrison help a weaker candidate with log carries. Watch the slow attrition as one by one, candidates rang the bell that signified quitting. By Tuesday morning, 23 remained. Park was still there, exhausted, hypothermic, moving on autopilot, but still there. Chun saw her stumble during a beach run, fall face first into the sand. Saw her lie there for a moment, the temptation to quit written across her body language. Then saw her push herself up and keep running. That is it, Chen said quietly to Hayes. That is the moment that defines operators. When giving up is the rational choice, and you choose to continue anyway. Wednesday brought the surf torture. Candidates sat in the Pacific Ocean while instructors timed their exposure to near-freezing water. Hypothermia set in quickly. Shivering became violent. Lips turned blue. Mind started to shut down. For more rang the bell. Park sat in that water with her arms locked around her knees, her eyes distant, somewhere beyond the cold, beyond the pain, in a place where quitting was not an option. Thursday was worse. Sleep deprivation compounded everything else. Candidates hallucinated, stumbled like drunks, made mistakes that would have been fatal in combat. The instructors pushed harder, demanded more. 3 more quit. 2 were pulled for medical concerns. Morrison collapsed during log PT. The medical team evaluated him, declared him fit to continue. He got up and kept going. Friday morning, 11 candidates remained. Hell Week was almost over. Just a few more evolutions. Just a few more hours of suffering. Chen watched them navigate the obstacle course. Watch Park miss a rope climb, fall, get up, try again. Watch Morrison carry a boat on his shoulders with 3 other candidates, all of them beyond exhaustion, running on pure will. Then the final evolution, the around-the-world paddle, a boat race that would take them miles down the coast and back. The ultimate test of teamwork and endurance. Chen watched the boats launch into the surf. Watch Park's boat nearly capsize. Watch them recover, paddle harder, refuse to quit. 6 hours later, the boats returned. All 11 candidates completed the evolution. Hell Week was over. The instructors called them in, had them stand at attention on the beach. Commander Hayes stepped forward. You have completed Hell Week. You have proven you have what it takes to continue SEAL training. You have earned the right to keep fighting for that trident. But understand this. Hell Week was just the beginning. The real test starts now. Learning to be an operator. Learning to work as a team. Learning to never quit when lives depend on you. The candidates were dismissed. Park walked past Chun, saw her watching. Stopped. Came to attention despite her exhaustion. Sir. Her voice was hoarse. Thank you for your words. About commitment. About refusing to quit. That is what got me through. Chun smiled. You got yourself through, Park. I just reminded you of what you already had inside. Now go rest. And then get ready to do it again tomorrow. Because this never gets easier. You just get stronger. Park nodded and left. Chen watched her go. Saw the transformation that had occurred. The young woman who had asked how to deal with doubt was gone. In her place was someone who knew her own strength, who had looked at impossible and refused to accept it. That evening, Chen returned to her office. Found an email from Mitchell. The subject line read, "You need to see this." She opened it. Found a link to a news article. The headline stopped her breath. Taliban commander known as the Surgeon killed in Pakistani drone strike. Chen read the article carefully. Pakistani intelligence had located the Surgeon in a safe house in Karachi, had coordinated with American forces. A precision strike had eliminated him and 3 associates. No civilian casualties. Clean operation. The article quoted unnamed sources saying the Surgeon had become increasingly reckless in recent months, obsessed with restoring his reputation after being humiliated by an American operator in Afghanistan. Chen sat back in her chair, felt conflicting emotions war inside her. Relief that the threat was gone. Regret that a worthy adversary had died. Strange grief for the loss of someone who had been both enemy and in some way equal. Someone who had understood honor in a way few others did. Her phone rang. Mitchell's number. She answered. You saw the news, he said. Not a question. I did. Chen's voice was quiet. I thought I would feel differently. Vindicated, maybe. Satisfied. But I just feel empty. Mitchell was silent for a moment. He was a warrior. He lived by a code. He died fighting for what he believed in. That is not a bad end. Not for someone like him. Did we do the right thing? Chen asked, letting him go that day on the mountain? Mitchell's answer was certain. Yes, because you showed him that Americans could have honor, could fight with integrity. In his last months, he knew that not all of us were the enemy he thought we were. That mattered. Maybe not enough to change the outcome, but it mattered. Chen thought about that, about honor and enemies and the strange connections forged in combat. I wish it had ended differently. Wish there had been another way. There rarely is, Mitchell said. War does not offer clean endings, just endings. The best we can do is fight with honor. Make choices we can live with. Respect our enemies even as we defeat them. You did all of that. You have nothing to regret. They talked for another hour. About Park and the other candidates. About the congressional testimony and its aftermath. About the slow change happening in the SEAL community as more women prove themselves capable. About legacy and responsibility and the weight of being a symbol when all you wanted was to be an operator. When Chen finally hung up, she walked to the window, looked out at Coronado, at the beach where candidates were still training. At the ocean that had tested her and Park and thousands before them. At the base where warriors were forged through suffering and choice and absolute refusal to quit. She thought about the surgeon, about his last months knowing he had been beaten by someone he had once dismissed, about how that knowledge had consumed him, driven him to recklessness, cost him his life. She wondered if letting him live had been mercy or cruelty, if giving him a chance to reflect on defeat had been worse than a clean death on that mountain. But she knew the answer. She had made the choice she could live with, the choice that honored her code. That was all any warrior could do. Make the hard calls and accept the consequences. Live with the weight of decisions that had no perfect answers. Keep moving forward despite doubt and regret, and the knowledge that war leaves scars deeper than wounds. Shun pulled out Marcus's trident, held it, felt the weight of legacy, of a young man who had believed excellence mattered more than politics, who had died saving strangers, whose father had taught her what it meant to be a leader, whose sacrifice had pushed her to become something greater than she thought possible. She thought about Park earning her way through Hell Week, about Morrison pushing past collapse, about the 11 candidates who had refused to quit, about the next generation of SEALs learning that gender mattered less than heart, that strength came in many forms, that warriors were defined by choices, not by anatomy. The surgeon was gone. The fight in Afghanistan continued without him. Park would earn her trident or she would not. The world would keep turning regardless. But something had changed, something fundamental about how the military viewed women in combat, about what was possible when opportunity met preparation, about how one impossible rescue could shift perceptions and open doors for thousands who came after. Shun pinned Marcus's trident back to her uniform, straightened her shoulders. Tomorrow she would teach another class, would mentor another group of candidates, would continue the mission of forging warriors who understood that excellence was the only credential that mattered, that codes of honor separated operators from killers, that the fight was not just about winning, but about who you became in the process. Tonight, she would rest, would let the weight of the day settle, would grieve for an enemy who had earned her respect, would celebrate candidates who had proven their strength, would carry forward the lessons learned in Afghan mountains and Coronado beaches and congressional hearing rooms. Because that was what warriors did. They kept fighting, kept teaching, kept proving that impossible was just another word for not yet achieved. And Sarah Chun, lieutenant commander, SEAL operator, survivor of impossible odds, would keep being the warrior Marcus had believed she could be. The leader Mitchell had trained her to become, the symbol that young women like Park needed to see, not because it was easy, but because it mattered, and mattering was worth every sacrifice. 1 year after the rescue, Chun stood at Arlington National Cemetery. The sun was warm on her face, the sky impossibly blue. She wore her dress whites. Both tridents gleamed on her chest, Marcus's and her own, side by side, equal. Mitchell stood beside her at Marcus's grave. Neither spoke. There was nothing left to say that had not been said in the past year. Nothing left to prove. Just two warriors honoring a third, paying respects to someone who had shown them what sacrifice meant. Chun placed a single red rose on the headstone, stepped back, saluted, held it while memories washed over her. Marcus laughing during training. Marcus teaching her to treat sucking chest wounds. Marcus taking 3 bullets meant for her. Marcus's father telling her the truth about how he died, about the helicopter full of Marines who lived because of his choice. At ease, Mitchell said quietly, "He has peace now, and so do we." They walked through the cemetery in comfortable silence, past row after row of white headstones. Thousands of warriors who had made the same choice Marcus made, to serve, to sacrifice, to stand between danger and those who could not stand themselves. The weight of it settled over Chun. The responsibility, the legacy, the unbroken chain of warriors stretching back through generations. "How does it feel?" Mitchell asked. 1 year later, looking back at everything that happened. Chun considered the question, like it happened to someone else. That night in the compound feels like a lifetime ago. The woman who dragged you through those mountains was someone different, someone who still needed to prove herself. She paused. I do not need that anymore. I know who I am, what I am capable of, what I stand for. Mitchell smiled. That is the gift impossible situations give us. Certainty about ourselves. Marcus had it. You have it now. The candidates you train will find it or they will not make it. But those who do will be better operators because you showed them the path. They reached Mitchell's car. He paused before opening the door. I have news. I am retiring next month. 23 years is enough. Time to let the next generation lead. Chun felt surprised. Sir, you still have years left. You could make admiral, could shape policy at the highest levels. Mitchell shook his head. That is not my fight anymore. My fight is spending time with my grandchildren, teaching them about their Uncle Marcus, making sure his story is not forgotten. He met her eyes. You are the future now, Sarah. You, and operators like Park. I did my part. Now I get to watch you do yours. Chun felt emotion tighten her throat. Thank you, sir, for everything. For coming back for me in Helmand, for believing in me when others did not, for teaching me what it means to be a leader. Mitchell pulled her into a brief embrace. You taught yourself, kid. I just pointed the way. He stepped back. Make me proud. Make Marcus proud. Show the world what real warriors look like. He drove away. Chun stood in the parking lot watching the car disappear. Felt the weight of transition, of one chapter ending and another beginning, of stepping fully into the role she had been preparing for without knowing it. Leader, mentor, Zumbod, not because she wanted those titles, but because she had earned them through actions that could not be denied. Her phone buzzed. A text from Park. Sir, I passed the final evaluation. I am officially a SEAL. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Chun smiled. Felt pride surge through her chest. Type back. You showed yourself it was possible. I just reminded you to look. Congratulations, operator. Welcome to the fight. She drove back to Coronado. Walked into the Team 7 compound. Found Commander Hayes waiting with a grin on his face. Congratulations, Commander Chun. Your promotion came through. Effective immediately. He extended his hand. You are now the executive officer of SEAL Team 7, which means you get all the paperwork and half the credit. Chun shook his hand. Felt the weight of the new rank. The new responsibility. Commander. The same rank Mitchell had held during the rescue. The same position that required her to lead from the front while ensuring every operator under her command had what they needed to succeed. Hayes handed her a folder. Your first assignment as EXO. We have a new class starting next month. 40 candidates. 8 of them women. They need to see what is possible. Need to hear from someone who has been where they want to go. Chun opened the folder. Saw the roster. Saw names and faces. Saw future warriors who would face their own impossible moments. Their own test of character. Their own choices between quitting and continuing. Some would make it. Most would not. But all of them deserve someone who understood the journey. Who had walked the path. Who could show them that excellence was achievable regardless of what others believed. That evening, Chun stood on the beach at Coronado. The same beach where she had completed her own Hell Week 3 years ago. The same sand that had tested her. The same ocean that had shown her what she was made of. She thought about the journey. About the frightened candidate who wondered if she belonged. About the operator who proved herself in Afghan mountains. About the leader who now shaped the next generation. She thought about Kessler. About his doubt and dismissal and eventual disgrace. About how fear of change had cost him everything while her embrace of challenge had opened every door. She bore him no malice, just pity. He had been so afraid of what women might take from him that he never saw what they could add to the fight. She thought about the surgeon, about their strange connection, about honor between enemies, about how he had died obsessed with restoring reputation she had shattered, about how letting him live might have been the crueler choice, about how war created bonds that transcended sides and how respect could exist even in conflict. She thought about Rodriguez and Morrison and Hayes and every operator who had started as skeptic and ended as ally, about how actions spoke louder than policies, about how excellence was the language everyone understood, about how one impossible rescue had shifted perceptions more than 1,000 speeches. Most of all, she thought about Marcus, about the young man whose death had haunted her for 2 years, about learning the truth of his sacrifice, about carrying his legacy forward, about honoring his memory not through guilt, but through becoming the warrior he had believed she could be. The sun set over the Pacific. Chun stood in the fading light and made a promise. To Marcus, to Mitchell, to Park, and the 8 women starting next month, and every candidate who would come after. She would be the leader they deserved, would demand excellence without apology, would show them that warriors were forged through choice and commitment, an absolute refusal to accept limits others placed on them. She would tell them the truth about the mountains and the compound and the 15 kilometers that should have killed her. Would tell them about the fear and pain and moments when quitting seemed rational. Would tell them about choosing to continue anyway, about finding strength in places they did not know existed, about becoming something greater than they imagined possible. If you enjoyed this story, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, character, or if you have had a similar situation happen to you before. Tell us what resonated most. Share if you know someone who showed this kind of hidden strength or courage when everyone else had given up. Chun turned from the ocean, walked back toward the compound. Tomorrow, she would begin shaping the next generation, would continue the mission Marcus started and Mitchell sustained and she now carried forward, would prove that one impossible rescue was just the beginning, that the real victory was not surviving the mountains, but changing what came after. Opening doors, shifting perceptions, making the impossible routine. The lights of Coronado glowed in the darkness. Chun walked toward them. Commander Sarah Chun, sea el operador. Survivor, leader, warrior, not despite being a woman, not because she had something to prove, simply because excellence recognized no barriers except those people chose to accept, and she had chosen to accept none. The fight continued. The mission evolved. The warriors changed, but the code remained constant. Never quit. Never leave a teammate. Never accept limits others placed on your potential. Honor mater. Sacrifice meant something. And impossible was just another word for not yet achieved. Chun had learned those lessons in fire and blood and Afghan mountains, had proven them true through actions that could not be denied. Now she would teach them to others, would forge new warriors who understood that strength came in many forms, that courage had no gender, that the only credential that mattered was the willingness to stand when others fell. She reached the compound, stepped inside, ready for tomorrow, ready for the next class, ready for the next impossible challenge. Because that was what warriors did. They kept fighting, kept teaching, kept proving that the human spirit could overcome anything when commitment met opportunity. And Sarah Chun would keep being the warrior Marcus believed in, the leader Mitchell trained, the symbol Park needed, not because it was easy, but because it was right, because it mattered, because some fights were worth every sacrifice. The story that began in a burning compound with a woman declared dead had ended with a commander standing at the beginning of countless new stories. Stories that would be written by the candidates she trained, the operators she led, the warriors she helped forge. Stories that would prove again and again that impossible was just another challenge waiting to be overcome. Chun closed the door behind her. The past was honored. The present was ready. The future was waiting. And she would meet it the same way she had met every challenge before. With courage, with honor, with absolute refusal to quit. Because that was what SEALs did. That was what warriors did. That was what she did. Always.